Just as the lantern of my life began to spin at the moment of death, I finally realized how miserable my whole life had been. My husband Wang Heng clasped my hand, moved to tears. Shen Niang, I have wronged you in this life. I let you keep the empty house for 16 years, manage the household, and watch me and Zhaozhao share deep, true affection. Zhaozhao has always been wronged, never able to be the legitimate wife. If there is a next life, you two can switch, she becomes the wife, you the concubine, and I will give you a lifetime of favor. I summoned my last strength to pull my hand back, but suddenly rows of Danmu comments flashed before my eyes. Here it comes, the rebirth scenario is about to start. This is too cruel. Zhaozhao thought this life was perfect, that her love with the scumbag was real. But hearing this sob, my heart is shattered. Who understands this humiliation? Begging to become a concubine just to be with a scumbag, even having the child recorded under someone else's name. It was, in the end, misplaced trust. When Zhaozhao is reborn, she'll marry General Shui outright and drive that scumbag crazy. Shen Zhaozhao is my younger half-sister, and General Shui is the dream I've kept hidden in my heart all my life. When he opened his eyes again, Wang Heng was kneeling in the main hall, begging his father to change the marriage. I want to marry Zhaozhao instead. I beg Lord Shen to grant this. His back was straight as a rod, his eyes full of earnest feeling, completely different from when he first asked to marry me. Even his father, who had always favored Shen Zhaozhao, was so astonished he couldn't speak. He pointed at him for a long time, then sighed heavily. Then what about Shen Niang? Wang Heng looked up, his expression as if struggling. But before he could speak, his half-sister ran in. Her hair was loose, her cheeks flushed with a faint pink, and, as in the previous life, she was breathtakingly beautiful. Wang Heng stood up and looked at her helplessly. Zhaozhao, don't make trouble. I know you don't like managing the household or being constrained, but you, Shen Zhaozhao sneered, her tone icy and cutting him off. Making trouble? How could a mere concubine's daughter like me be worthy of a noble household like the Bo residence? Wang Heng sighed indulgently. This time I'm not making you a concubine. I'll persuade my mother and the clan and formally take you as my wife. Zhaozhao, don't say things in anger. With a smack, Shen Zhaozhao suddenly raised her hand and slapped Wang Heng hard. Her eyes were rimmed with red, her fingers trembling, as if her hatred had reached its limit. Persuade your mother and the clan, so you could have married me as your lawful wife all along. Back then you said the Marquis's illegitimate sons were covetous, that you had no control over things, asked me to bear the humiliation. Was it all a lie? At that moment, a line of strange words flashed before her again. What a scumbag. In his last life he could clearly have married Zhaozhao as his rightful wife, but he tricked her into being a concubine. Scumbags don't suddenly fall for my sister at the start and try to have them both, do they? The last life was too bitter, no official status, only false pampering. Two clear tears rolled down Shen Zhaozhao's cheeks as she looked at her father with sorrow. Father, Wang Heng is not a good man. I don't want to marry him. If someone must marry, let my sister marry him. I'll bless them. Her father sighed with heartache and hurriedly stepped forward to steady her. Silly child, he's willing to take a proper wife now. Shenyang is just an extra. Why are you so upset? Watching them gather around Shen Zhaozhao, soothing her with gentle words, a cold smile curved my lips. In the previous life, Wang Heng and Shen Zhaozhao loved each other, but he was the heir of the Marquis's household, and the family would never allow him to marry a concubine's daughter, so Shen Zhaozhao fasted for 2 days and begged my father to have me married off with her. My sister is plain-looking and timid. If she marries out later she will surely be bullied. Why not let her be the mistress of the Wang household? We sisters will surely get along. She thought she was giving me the greatest favor, grabbing my hand and repeating, from now on the children I have will be recorded under my sister's name, so you won't have to suffer childbirth. I only want Brother Heng's love. Everything else I'll give to my sister. Okay, who would have thought that I, the legitimate daughter, would become the concubine sister's addition in marriage? Thinking of that, I opened my eyes again and walked into the hall with a smile. My sister and young Master Wang are already intimate. If she doesn't marry into the Marquis's household, how will she live in the future? Those words stunned the three of them instantly. Father's face went dark. He snatched up the teacup beside him and hurled it. Bastard, who taught you to slander your own sister like this? Past experience told me that avoiding him would only make him angrier. I lowered my head and stood firm. The scalding tea splashed onto my shoulder, the pain making my whole arm tremble. Zhaozhao's eyes reddened, her face full of shock and the wounded grievance of betrayal. I already did this for you. What more does my sister want? Do you want me to die? She argued with righteous indignation, playing the part of an innocent wronged soul, as if I were the wicked sister who stole her lover. I stared at the shattered porcelain scattered across the floor, folding away the rising hatred and disgust in my eyes. Father, your daughter only ever thought of Zhaozhao. Now that she's lost her purity, if she doesn't marry the heir, her life will truly be ruined. Those two sluts deserved to be tied together. In my previous life, my mother-in-law tormented me in every way. Before dawn I had to wait in the courtyard to attend to her needs. My sisters-in-law jeered and taunted me with barbs, and though I managed the household, I lived like a servant who poured her heart and soul into managing finances. For every matter in the Hu residence, I couldn't make a single decision. Whenever there was even a slight shortage of silver on the books, I had to kneel in the ancestral hall and endure the family punishments. Even when sending a servant on an errand, extra silver had to be given to curry favor. If you can't bear children, that would be one thing, but you can't even manage the household. Marrying you in was worse than marrying a concubine. Zhaozhao watched me being tormented with wide eyes. Those hardships were clearly caused by her, yet she kept insisting that I was the one living in luxury. Her eyes on me were always laden with condescending pity. As soon as sister entered the Marquis's household, she was able to run the family, and without the burden of childbirth she could raise 3 children. What a blessing that is, something so many people long for in vain. Which new wife doesn't endure some grievances? Don't be so melodramatic. Honestly, I'm really envious of you, sister. I lived every day in anxiety and despair, my hair falling out in handfuls like a prisoner trapped in hell, not a sliver of daylight in sight. And in this lifetime, it was finally Zhaozhao's turn to enjoy this blessing. 2 rehearsed tears slid down my cheeks as I knelt on the ground in misery. Sister, the heir has already agreed to marry you. Stop being so willful. If this matter gets out, the Shen family's reputation will be ruined. How will others view father? Zhaozhao froze for a moment. A fierce hatred flashed in her eyes as she looked at me. If this really gets out, I'll die to prove my innocence. I won't let my sister or my family be implicated. A pained expression crossed Wang Heng's face, one of pity and sorrow for Zhaozhao, but when he turned to look at me his gaze remained as cold as ever. It doesn't matter. If this leaks, we'll tell them that Xian Niang and I had an affair from beginning to end. That way, I'll take her as my concubine. Zhaozhao is my legal wife. Her reputation must not be tarnished. We can only let Xian Niang suffer this grievance. I forced down the surging hatred in my chest and kept my head bowed without a word. Father stood with his hands behind his back, his face dark as he stared at me. Very well, Xian Niang grew up in the inner quarters and hasn't seen many outsiders. Let Zhaozhao take your name and marry into the Marquis's household. That will make it proper and above board. Wang Heng let out a sigh of relief, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Many thanks, father-in-law. I will definitely treat Zhaozhao and Xian Niang well. No sooner had he finished speaking than Zhaozhao suddenly went mad, snatching up a shard of broken porcelain from the ground and pressing it against her own neck. Her eyes were red as she glared at Wang Heng and me, like a trapped beast. Driven to desperation, I won't marry. Xian, don't you like Wang Heng? Aren't you jealous that I can ignore everything and just be lovey-dovey with him? Now I'm giving him to you, why won't you accept him? Besides, I already have someone I adore. The man I'm going to marry is Shui Yunli. Father's face changed abruptly. Bastard, what nonsense are you talking? Zhaozhao, however, showed not the slightest remorse. She looked straight at Wang Heng and continued, on what basis do you think I'll marry you in this life? Aren't you always feeling guilty toward Xian? Don't you think she's quiet, well-behaved, and sensible? I will grant you your wish. Henceforth, I, Zhaozhao, sever all ties with you. Wang Heng, we are done, with no further connection. At some point, the sunset had completely sunk. and the last trace of daylight had faded from the main hall. The servants did not dare to come in to light a lamp, and Zhaozhao's face was half hidden in the shadows. Looking both crazy and distorted, Wang Heng was taken aback for a moment, then suddenly let out a long sigh. "You've come back too, right, Zhaozhao? In my last life I spoiled you and indulged you, and neglected Xianyang, so I feel guilty toward her. At the same time I always regretted not being able to give you the position of principal wife, reborn. I only want to make it up to you. Trust me, I can give you and Xianyang happiness. Don't ever use Shui Yunli to spite me again." He's a half-broken cripple. What right does he have to compare himself to me? Zhaozhao snorted coldly. "He can stay unmarried for me for life. He's 10,000 times better than you." In an instant, the barrage lit up in midair again. "Scumbag, go to hell. How dare you insult our General Xiao Shui? Xiao Shui is just pretending to be disabled. Okay, just wait and see. This time he can crush you to death with 2 fingers. Xiao Shui is going to request to fight tomorrow. I won't sleep tonight. I'm just looking forward to having a great time tomorrow." "What tomorrow? Has anyone gone to see Xiao Shui? He's already coming this way holding the rabbit jade pendant that my Bao gave him." I froze. The rabbit jade pendant, that was the token I secretly gave Shui Yunli back then. Watching the strange characters drifting in midair and the frenzied Zhaozhao, I suddenly laughed. It turned out that in my previous life I could have married Shui Yunli, but Zhaozhao couldn't stand to see me live happily. So she dragged me into the Marquis residence, where I was unloved and childless. I strode up to Zhaozhao, raised my hand, and slapped her. "Have you had enough of making trouble?" Zhaozhao obviously did not dare to strangle her, and after I slapped her so hard she staggered backward. She instinctively loosened her grip on the porcelain fragment she held. "How dare you hit me?" I looked up, my gaze icy. "I am the legitimate eldest daughter. What is there I wouldn't dare to discipline in? A foolish younger sister who doesn't know her place. Although father favors Zhaozhao, he has always put interests first. On one side is a crippled man unable to walk, on the other is the poised heir of a powerful Marquis estate with a bright future. He naturally chooses Wang Heng." Father gave Zhaozhao a threatening glance, then turned to me and said, "Xianyang, go accompany the crown prince." Wang Heng's pride had been repeatedly trampled on by Zhaozhao, and he was already displeased. Now he swept his sleeve and walked out with a sullen face. "She's always been this willful. I can indulge her for a while, but for her to make a fuss like this every single day is truly tiresome. You played well today. Someone ought to put her in her place." I remember in the past life they were the envy of the entire capital, a divine couple everyone praised. Whenever they were mentioned, people would commend the crown prince for his single-minded devotion, treating Zhaozhao like a precious jewel. Even when attending banquets, Wang Heng only brought Zhaozhao with him, and even if he was reported for favoring his wife and extinguishing concubines, he didn't care at all. But in this life, it has only just begun, and have they already come to loathe each other? I kept my head down and pretended to be sympathetic, saying, "Love makes one critical. My younger sister simply cares too much for the crown prince. Prince, don't blame her for those angry words." Wang Heng stopped and turned his head, looking at me with eyes full of deep feeling. "And you, Xianyang, now that I think about it, I know you admired me, but neither Zhaozhao nor I ever asked whether you were willing. Xianyang, would you be willing to enter the Hu residence as my concubine? From now on, I will make up for everything with all my affection for you, brocades and delicacies, jewel-filled dowries, unwavering devotion, anything you want, I'll give you, except that your rank would be one step lower than Zhaozhao's. I will make you the happiest woman in the capital. Xianyang, will you?" "I don't want to. I said the same thing in my previous life. Back then I knelt in the corridor begging my father, saying I didn't want to marry Wang Heng. Father flew into a rage and smashed a precious teacup. Ungrateful, without your sister, with your looks and talents, could you have married into a Marquis household as the mistress?" Zhaozhao's mother stood to one side watching, a cold sneer pulling at her face. "Both mother and daughter will marry and become concubines, yet the elder miss is the one who was made to suffer first." I knelt for a whole day, from noon until the next morning. Later, when guests were expected, 2 maids grabbed my hands and feet and dragged me back into the courtyard, impatiently saying, "Elder miss, stop being dramatic, so much good fortune can't be begged for. Whom are you trying to kill yourself for?" After my mother died, for decades I kept being a timid, cowardly target of abuse, because I knew there was no one left in the world to protect me. A child with no support has no right to be willful. Obedience and virtue were my only merits. They looked down on me, despised me, believing I was born unfit to choose. Aside from bowing my head and acquiescing, I had no other rights. But I've been obedient my whole life. What did that end up getting me? So I raised my head and looked straight into Wang Han's eyes. "I don't want to." Wang Han seemed not to expect my refusal. And he was still speaking to himself. "Don't worry, if my mother and those old women bully you, I will shield you." "Xian Niang, what are you saying?" The wind rose, lifting my scattered hair and the hems of my skirt slightly. In the distance, the sound of wheels rolling came, and a cold voice rang out. "This lady says she does not want to." I turned my head against the wind and saw the person from my memory, Shui Yunli, looking at the handsome figure on the wheelchair. I couldn't help holding my breath. It felt as if countless fine steel needles were traveling upward along the bloodstream from my fingertips, and the heart-wrenching pain of cowardice through ages and sleepless nights surged up all at once. Shui Yunli and I have only met 3 times. The first time was at his mother's funeral. A small boy, stubborn, knelt in the hall and bit his lips hard to prevent tears from flowing. But later, behind everyone, he hid in the garden's artificial hill and cried convulsively. My mother was still alive then, and I was the unbridled tyrant of the household. Hearing the cries, I and the maid-in-waiting agreed to slink through the cracks of the artificial hill, stuffing the candies from my purse into his mouth. "Not comfortable, Tilda, not comfortable, Tilda, they'll all fly away. Don't cry, don't cry. Mother is watching from the heavens, she would be sad to see you hurt." The second time we met was at my mother's funeral. He came with his father to offer condolences. The boy had lost the baby fat from his face and seemed somewhat resigned to this fate's cruel coincidence. When no one else was around, he came over and patted my head. "If you want to cry, go ahead, I'll cover for you. Your mother won't see." Years later, many years on, I followed my aunt to the temple to offer incense. I was tricked into getting off the carriage and left by the roadside. It was an overcast day. Clouds roiled on the horizon. The sky was so heavy it felt like thunder could crack open at any moment. I was trembling all over but dared not cry, clutching my hairpin and inching my way toward the city. That day I ran into Shui Yunli again. He wore gleaming armor and rode a magnificent white steed. He recognized me at once. He frowned and asked nothing, only said, "I'll take you back." He thoughtfully sent for his aunt from the city and put me into her carriage. In the dust kicked up along the road, he turned his horse and rode off again. "I'm going off to war. If I return victorious, will you come to my house to petition for my hand?" I had believed myself abandoned by fate, destined to live a life of cramped grievance. In that moment I could hardly hear anything, only the jolting of the wheel ruts and the sight of him riding away. Quietly in my heart I said, "I will." The last dim light on the horizon had not yet faded and fell softly on Shui Yunli. I heard him speak slowly. "By auspicious coincidence, this general has come to propose to Miss Shen. If young Master Wang has no business, you may leave." A string of misfortunes had shattered Wang Heng, who considered himself reborn and fated. His face went ashen. His cold gaze swept back and forth between Shui Yunli and me twice before he left behind a line. "General Shui, I remember you, we'll see about this." Wang Heng's figure vanished into the garden and I turned to look at Shui Yunli. Did he come here on this very day in the previous life, too? "Miss Shen." My abruptness just now. Shui Yunli looked at me quietly, the same tenderness in his eyes as when he once stood before me and let me weep without restraint. A flood of grievances from another life rose up at once. My nose stung and I nearly wept. "The little rabbit I gave you, do you still carry it?" Before he went off to war in the previous life, I had secretly sent a gift to Shui Yunli's aunt, the little rabbit jade pendant, something my mother had made especially for me. "What do you mean? Proposing to the sister? What about my sister Bao Zhao?" The plot's collapsing, right? Isn't little Shui supposed to be the heroine's official match? What's with the rabbit pendant? Wasn't that my sister's? Who knows? I'm totally confused. Quietly speaking, that pendant was something the heroine had insisted someone make when she saw her sister with it, quietly adding, before the heroine's rebirth little Shue came to propose and hadn't said much when his father said both daughters were already betrothed, the heroine lost her own rabbit pendant and, when she saw it on little Shue, she assumed he liked her and that his proposal was for her. So little Shue has always liked the sister. Guys, don't you feel bad for the sister? She could have been with the one she liked in the past life, but the heroine forcibly packaged her off to a scoundrel. Conclusion: this book has broken. Abandon it. Honestly, if the sister were swapped into the heroine's role, the story would make sense. I'd like to see how it tastes. A torrent of comments rolled by, and beyond those words I saw a pair of slender hands take a rabbit pendant from a pouch, treating it as if it were a priceless treasure. I wear it every day. Shienna, you and I are both orphans who lost our mothers. If you will have me, I would be your support. I bit my lip and forced the tears back. When I spoke again, my voice no longer trembled. Wait 7 days. If, after 7 days, the young general still wishes to marry me, then I, Shenxuani, will go without looking back. Shue Yunli looked at me deeply and after a long moment said, very well, I'll wait for you. But Shue Yunli, 7 days later my reputation would be ruined, having played maid to Zhaozhao and Wang Heng for their whole lives. I knew those two too well. Before 3 days had passed, rumors about Wang Heng and me carrying on before the wedding had spread all over the capital. In taverns and tea houses, the men talked loudly and at length. 2 of them, warmed by drink, even claimed they personally saw Wang Heng leading me into the inn. For a while, I became the laughingstock of the entire capital. Everyone called me loose. Shen Zhaozhao sent people with a set of pink clothes. Shen Xian, you've brought this on yourself. You wanted to ruin me, and now you can only marry Wang Heng as his concubine. I'll wait to see how badly things end for you. As for me, I'm the fated heroine. Wherever I go, I'll be adored by all. My hand brushed over the pink skirt, and I stood up with a smile. Shen Zhaozhao, I used to fear you because I wanted to live. I always hoped that one day heaven would take pity on my misery, timidity, and forbearance and give me some good days. But later I learned that this world does not pity the poor and weak. I must make you wary of me, make you fear me, make you suffer. Only then will I be at ease. After saying that, I slapped her. Shen Zhaozhao was stunned. It took her a while to, red-faced and furious, point at me and shout harshly, beat her. The maids behind her charged at me, teeth clenched. Watching Shen Zhaozhao's rare, hysterical expression, I slowly curled my lips. When I limped to the Dali temple to beat the complaint drum, the bystanders who had followed me along the way had already crowded the path until it was impenetrable. At that moment I was smeared all over with the blood I'd applied, my hair tangled and messy, but my eyes held a resolute sadness anyone who saw me would sigh. What a tragic young woman. Boom boom boom, the wronged person's drum sounded, and the Yamen gates opened in response. I lifted my bloodshot eyes and cried out in a piercing voice, Sir, this woman wishes to accuse the heir of the Marquis of Qiang, Wang Heng, of raping her. I have more than a dozen witnesses. The minister of the Dali temple was surnamed Zhu, and he and Wang Heng's father had long been political enemies. In my previous life I often heard of the two sparring in court, each wishing the other off to meet the king of hell by the next day. No sooner had I finished my accusation than Zhu Mingyuan immediately sent people to the Qiang Marquis's mansion. I handed over the complaint. Your Honor, a few days ago people in the market were saying they saw the heir of the Marquis of Qiang drag me into an inn and humiliate me, but I have no memory of it. However, rumors grow. One person might be mistaken, but now the whole capital is saying the heir and I had an affair, so it must be true. Therefore I believe the heir of the Marquis of Qiang drugged and raped me. After knocking me unconscious, the witnesses are listed on the complaint, time, place, and those who heard their testimony are all recorded clearly. Please, Your Honor, speak for me. I put all my strength into my voice so everyone gathered at the Da Li Sai gate could hear. The crowd immediately exploded like boiling water poured into hot oil, bursting into uproar. pointing at me and saying nothing but that I was shameless to bring such things into court, yet I clearly saw a flash in Zhu Mingyuan's eyes. He slammed the judge's gavel down hard. I will try this case. Wang Heng arrived very quickly, his face dark as if a death had occurred at home. He entered the yamen and seemed to force down all his anger, looking at me. Xianniang, stop this, I will take responsibility for you. I took a step back. Responsible how? Has the heir admitted the market rumors are true? Wang Heng gritted his teeth. What market rumors? Don't be ridiculous. I fell to my knees in the hall with a thud, raised my blood-stained hand to my forehead and kowtowed. Sir, please seek justice for this woman. Zhu Mingyuan sat at the head and looked at Wang Heng calmly. Bring in the witnesses. Next. More than a dozen people I had recorded in the indictment were brought into the court. They were all those who had proclaimed in bookshops and tea-houses that they had seen me humiliated with their own eyes. Even what they had said, who they were with, and the time and place had been meticulously recorded, leaving no room to deny it. Half of them went limp on the ground the moment they entered the courtroom. Wang Heng cast a cold glance over the crowd and smiled lightly, as if the wind barely stirred the clouds. Lord Zhu, Xian, and I are of one mind and heart, but I did act foolishly. Now our families have already discussed the marriage. What scene do you think is being played out in this court? Zhu Mingyuan retorted. The plaintiff downstairs accuses you of raping her. These people are eyewitnesses. What? Am I not allowed to try the case? Wang Heng knew before he came that I had sued him. Yet even now he couldn't believe it. This woman who in her past life wouldn't even dare raise her voice had the nerve to ruin her own reputation and bring the matter into court. Watching his shocked, stupefied expression gave me great satisfaction. In this life Wang Heng took the greatest pride in his birth and learning. In his last life he placed second in the imperial exams. If he sat them again in this life he might well achieve an even better rank. But what if his reputation were disgraced in broad daylight? The Wang family's political enemies would scent the blood and pounce, dragging him into the abyss. The next moment I cried out sorrowfully, Sir, I am the legitimate daughter of my household. After my mother passed away, my stepmother locked me in the courtyard. I don't even have a maid to attend me. I don't go out the main gate or the side gate, and I have never been to any of the outside parties. Today my stepmother forced me to marry into the Marquis's residence to be the heir's concubine. I resisted with my life and was nearly beaten to death by my stepmother and the old woman who serves my half-sister. Only because a kindly servant in the back courtyard could not bear to watch did she let me out. I am a lone girl without support. How could I possibly have mutual affection with the Marquis's son? When and where would I have committed such a foolish act? With him, recalling the grievances of my past life, I wept inconsolably. Every word sounded as if it would bleed. Even the onlookers outside could not bear to listen. How pitiful! If she really wanted to climb up by flattery, why would she run out covered in blood to file a complaint? Whose daughter is this? She's truly pitiful. It's from Minister Shen's household, who in the whole capital doesn't know his family is run by the concubine's steward. Even widowed women wouldn't marry in and put up with that. I think it's because the heir used force. Assistant Minister Shen couldn't offend him, so he had his daughter sent to be a concubine. How pitiful, how pitiful. After the heated debate, those who had spread the rumors were left completely deflated. Zhu Mingyuan struck the gavel again. No more noise. Take these witnesses away and question them separately. Have them state clearly what they saw, when and where it happened, what the lighting was like, and how Wang Heng and Mrs. Shen were dressed. If even half a lie is found, subject them to the harshest punishment. One of them immediately fell to their knees in fright. Sir, I confess, I didn't see anything. It was a servant of the Shen family who gave me the money and told me to spread it. One person knelt first, and the others immediately followed suit. Your Honor, I, too, accepted money from the Shen family. I didn't see anything. Have mercy, sir, have mercy. Ever since I exposed, in public, that Zhaozhao was involved with Wang Heng, I knew that Zhaozhao, unwilling to marry him, would strike first and replace the woman who had lost her purity with me. Since I've already been smeared with mud, none of these people should expect to come out clean. Your Honor, my sister has gone mad. What she said here today is all nonsense. My father is on duty and cannot leave. I have come to take my sister home. What a commotion. Zhaozhao has arrived. I can testify. 3 months ago our whole family went to the temple outside the city to offer incense. Halfway there my sister suddenly said she had something to do and insisted on getting out of the carriage. She did not return until midnight. It must have been that day she met the heir apparent. What I have said is recorded by the city gate guards and can be checked. I beg you, sir, for the sake of my sister's deep love for the heir, do not punish her for the false accusation she made today. She was only afraid the heir would not want to marry her. She wore a veil and glided in like a willow in the breeze, making people feel pity at first sight. When someone like that spoke, people were born to believe them at least a little. So she delivered herself here. The family has already come and explained everything. How could it be false? She still dares to beat the drum and cry injustice. If she were my daughter, I'd have beaten her to death long ago. A gust of wind blew, lifting my blood-stained dress. At that moment, the clerk behind me announced, "The Lady Shui, wife of the Duke, has arrived. The general of the bold cavalry, Shui Yunli, has arrived." I turned back into the wind, and the lady who had been inside the coach slowly stepped out from the crowd, with Shui Yunli trailing behind her. 3 months ago, Miss Shen the elder was pushed off a carriage by a vicious servant from her household. I happened to run into her and gave her a ride. Second Miss Shen, who is this meeting with? Zhaozhao widened her eyes and stepped back in disbelief. Shui Yunli, no. Why aren't you helping me? She bit her lip, and her eyes instantly rimmed red. So someone was helping Sister Lai. No wonder you dared to make such a scene today. Shui Yunli looked at me across the crowd, and when he saw me covered in injuries, his brows furrowed tightly. A thought stirred in my heart. This man, in this lifetime, had indeed stepped forward earlier than expected. Your servants aren't merely happened to pass by today, serving as a witness for Miss Shen. If you claim there's a lie, does second Miss Shen have any evidence? At that moment, the man who had been kneeling on the ground suddenly shot upright. Evidence, sir, I have evidence. The one who consorts with the crown prince is Lady Shen. Their household servants burned the letters at the back door, and I seized 2 of them. After speaking, he drew 2 letters from his bosom. Zhu Mingyuan finished reading and sneered coldly. Crown prince, which young lady exactly won your heart? Haven't you even remembered? Clearly, Wang Heng was angry and bewildered. He couldn't understand how something so simple in his past life could have escalated between 2 women to such an extent now, causing him to lose all face. When did the Dali Temple's Yamen start meddling in family squabbles and matters of the bed? Zhu Mingyuan's expression was calm. When someone beats the drum to cry injustice, this official must open the court to investigate. The heir may think it's a domestic tiff, but he does not know a woman's chastity is more important than her life. The injured party accuses you with her life. That is a matter of great consequence. Now this official asks you, did Miss Shen privately receive you? Wang Heng cast a cold glance over everyone in the hall. Yes. Shenyang and I are of one heart. This accords with heaven's order and human ethics. I immediately fell to my knees in a bow. My lord, this humble woman is willing to undergo examination to prove her innocence. If a female physician can prove that I am still chaste, I will sue Wang Heng and Zhaozhao for slander and rumor-mongering. From today on, I will also take the sworn statement to sue the prefectural education officer. People of such immoral conduct are unfit to take the imperial examinations and become officials. This is my goal. First, to completely bind Wang Heng and Zhaozhao. Second, ruin Wang Heng's official career. Even if it means mutual destruction. The physician woman arrived quickly, and I was taken into the inner hall of the Yamen for an examination. As I loosened my clothes, I thought of Shui Yunli's figure in the main hall. He watched me quietly, with no disdain or aversion on his face, not even a hint of displeasure, only a deep gaze that seemed to say respect. After the examination was over and I followed the physician out, Shui Yunli was already gone. Only the Duchess remained, sitting with poise on the grand armchair below the hall. I heard the physician step forward and softly report. Reporting to Your Excellency, this young lady is still intact. Zhaozhao staggered a step and nearly fell to the ground. Zhu Mingyuan immediately delivered the verdict. Wang Heng, Shunshe is clearly ill-intentioned, spreading rumors and slander. This official sentences her to 30 strokes, with the option to pay a fine in lieu of punishment. In addition, this official will send the documents to the Education Commissioner's office. With such conduct, how can one be fit for the Imperial Examinations and office? Expressionless, I turned and walked out, step by slow step. This is just the beginning. By the time I walked out of the Yamen, the spectators had already been dispersed. A cloak suddenly dropped over me, wrapping me from head to toe. Shui Yunli was standing right behind me. Can you still go? I've sent someone to fetch the carriage, it's aunt's. I felt the warmth of the cloak and let out a deep sigh. I have no clan to shelter me. I am neither a talented woman nor a beauty. And now my reputation is ruined. General Shui. Do you regret it? Today was supposed to be windy, but now it's still. On the whole street, only the sound of my heartbeat remains. After my mother left, my father remarried. Her heart is cunning as a snake. On the surface she treats me with more than a parent-child relation. But in fact I have fallen for several kinds of poison. If not for my maternal grandfather's protection, I'm afraid I wouldn't have lived past 2 years. But you only have yourself now, surrounded by wolves, all alone and destitute. These years must have been hard, right? I cannot hold back my tears. They slide down my cheeks line by line. I want to speak, but I don't know what to say. From childhood to now, all I ever heard was contempt. My father despised me for not being as outstanding and radiant as Zhaozhao. My concubine aunt resented me, wondering why I didn't die sooner, and the servants in the courtyard scorned me as useless and weak. But not a single person ever asked me whether I was in pain. Shui Yunli looked at me and slowly spoke. Ashwan, on many sleepless nights, the sweetest thing I can recall is the candy you once slipped me. Now, I don't want you to suffer so much anymore. Seeing you standing in the hall today, I feel nothing but admiration and regret that I didn't help you sooner. But I have never regretted saying I would marry you. Aishen, are you willing? The wind rose, gradually dispersing the clouds overhead, and the warm sun fell on Shui Yunli, making him look stunning. I said slowly, I do. The carriage stopped in front of me, the curtain lifted, and the Duchess looked over gently. You would. Miss Shen is covered in blood, and you still don't send someone back to call the palace doctor, then fetch some good medicine to send to the Shen residence. Shui Yunli also delivered 4 martial maids from the Prince Regent's estate. If anyone bullies you, there's no need to spare their lives. You cause a huge trouble. I can cover for you. I nod and accept this goodwill. I sued Wang Heng and Shen Zhaozhao at the Dali Temple, without backing. Going home would surely mean a death sentence. But now, Lady Guogong herself delivered me back to the Shen residence, accompanied by 4 martial maidservants and the revived engagement to General Shui. Shen Zhaozhao looked at me as if she could weep blood. When did you start seeing Shui Yunli? Why do you have to snatch whoever I like? Are you that low? Aunt Su glared at me viciously, her face contorted with rage. You little wretch, if I'd known, I never should have let you grow up. Someone, lock the eldest young lady in the woodshed. I asked coldly, who dares? The maid named Chunjiang stepped forward at once and felled the old servant who tried to grab me with a single punch. Only then did a smile appear on my face. Aunt Su, you've controlled household affairs for many years. Now, it's time for a change. No sooner had the words fallen than my father came in with his hands clasped behind his back. He looked at me and said in a grim voice, Shenniang, you've really got quite the grand setup now. I blinked and smiled at this man who had spent years pampering concubines and putting his wife to death. Yes, father, I think it's good now too. Since father has arrived, let's decide sister's marriage. Anyway, sister will have to go to the Hu family as the rightful wife. Otherwise, I can only haul the concubine's coffin to the Hu residence and seek justice. But now the entire Marquis household probably hates our Shen family to the core. Father and second madam must prepare more dowry for my younger sister. The last time the marriage was discussed, I was just a pawn arranged by others. Now, I am the chessmaster who determines their fate. No matter how much Shen Zhaozhao protested, she was still shoved into the bridal sedan, just like I was in my previous life. Her face streaked with tears as she faced her wedding day. Before she left, she still looked down on me from on high. Shen Xian, Do you think you've won? Wang Heng loves me deeply, still willing to marry me now. The days ahead for me will all be good. And you, an orphan with nothing, how long can Shui Yunli be fresh for? I held her shabby dowry list and nodded with a smile. Then I wish you, younger sister, a happy life. I used my memory to bribe a steward's wife at the Marquis residence. She was slick and greedy, and always well informed. Almost every 3 days, I would receive a letter saying that Wang Heng had been expelled from the academy, that the educational authorities forbade him from taking the imperial examinations for 5 years, and that Zhaozhao had married into the Marquis household as a concubine's daughter. Zhaozhao was despised by everyone in the residence, especially the Marquis' wife, who always felt her son should have married a noble-born lady and believed he had been bewitched by this demon Zhaozhao. The Marquis' wife devised new ways to torment her daily, making her stand under the scorching sun to be corrected, ordering her to hold a lamp and stand attending at midnight, punishing any small lapse with kneeling in the ancestral hall, and even confiscating the key to her dowry chest. She had never been treated so unfairly and went to Wang Heng to cry and make a scene, but the current Wang Heng was no longer the graceful young lord from my previous life who had enjoyed smooth success and cherished her in the palm of his hand. He poured all his resentment onto Zhaozhao, never a kind word, and he even, drunk, struck her several times. Zhaozhao cried that she could not go on living, and returned to the Shun family to weep several times, only to find that aside from me, she could see no one. Her mother was locked by me in a small courtyard, given sour rice and rotten vegetables to fill her belly each day, and 2 old women slapped her daily. The humiliations I once endured were now made her taste tenfold. As for her father, he abandoned her the moment Shui Yunli stood up from the wheelchair. In the 3rd year after I married Shui Yunli, Zhaozhao accepted the rebellious prince's lavish gifts on behalf of the old Marquis, and the entire Shun family was exiled. That day I purposely rode out of the city to see them off. Wang Heng looked disheveled, long past his former pride and vigor. He stared at me blankly and said, "No, I should marry Shenyang. Shenyang would make a good mistress, only she can manage the inner household and spare me any worries." Zhaozhao laughed like a madwoman. "Shen, I am the girl of destiny. When I am reborn, the first thing I'll do is kill you. Do you think this is the end? I'll tell you, Shui Yunli is mine. He is my male lead." I simply stood in front of the carriage, saying nothing, watching each of my enemies meet a miserable end. I could finally begin my new life at that moment. Shui Yunli rode up from a distance, laughing as he called, "Ah Xian, a new pastry shop opened in the south of the city. They have your favorite sesame dumplings. I bought some for you."